Hey, this is Michelle, and you're listening to Words with Michelle, the podcast, a show where I sit down and have conversations with influencers on a range of topics, anything from natural hair, employment, discrimination, food, relationships, and everything in between. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. If you want to send me an email, hit me up at michelle@wordsmichelle.com. Thanks for tuning into the latest episode of Words with Michelle, the podcast. In August, I had the pleasure of speaking with Tonya Williams, actress, producer, and founder of Reelworld Screen Institute. This makes it my third time interviewing Tonya. I'm not ashamed to say that the first time I met her, I was a little tongue-tied. And who wouldn't be? Tonya is a living legend in my eyes. She was on the long-running soap opera Young and the Restless, and she's the founder and executive director of the Reelworld Screen Institute for almost 25 years. Since it's been about 6 years since our last chat, I wanted to reconnect and speak about the upcoming festival, which runs from October 21st to November 3rd. But before I get into the details of the show, I wanted to let you know that this episode is sponsored by my new book, Inspirational Conversations with Today's Black Canadian Changemakers. Words with Michelle, Inspirational Conversations with Today's Black Canadian Changemakers delves into the powerful, candid conversations with trailblazers who are reshaping our communities and inspiring change. Each dialogue explores their unique journeys, struggles, and triumphs, offering readers not just inspiration, but actionable insights. This book is a celebration of resilience, creativity, and the rich tapestry of Black Canadian experiences. Whether you're looking to be inspired or seeking guidance on your own path, these stories will resonate deeply and ignite your passion for change. You can purchase a copy on Amazon.ca and Amazon.com. I hope you enjoy. Now back to the show. Talking with Tonya this time around was very, very familiar. It was fun to reconnect with her. As I mentioned, the last time I interviewed her was a few years ago. I remember leaving work and traveling way across town just to do the interview. In this episode, I intended to speak with Tonya to speak about the summit, but she very eagerly shared essential information to anyone looking to get into the film industry. Actually, all of her advice can be applied to anyone looking for work or becoming an entrepreneur. Yes, I took note of everything. Thanks for those gems, Tonya. So to start the show, I asked her to do a little bit of an intro and also to let us know a bit more about her. Thanks for being on the show, Tonya. Thank you for coming on the show. Today we have Tonya Williams on the show. Please tell us a bit about yourself.
So I am Tonya Williams, and I currently work as executive director of an organization I founded 24 years ago called Reelworld Screen Institute, which houses Reelworld Film Festival, Reelworld Summit, Access Reelworld, our database, and then there's a charity arm to our organization called Reelworld Foundation. So I oversee that, and in a previous life, I was an actor. I guess you're kind of always an actor, so still I am. But I worked on a number of shows from the age of 17, well into my 40s, the last really big show being The Young and the Restless, which I starred in for 19 years. So that's me in a nutshell.
Perfect, beautiful. So what inspired you to start the Reelworld Summit?
I think it was because we were already doing things that were like a summit, but we just hadn't branded it as a summit. So the festival itself, I think all film festivals are reimagining themselves, and I've been reimagining ours for the last 10 years, which is a festival when back in the day used to be a place you just went and you saw films and then you left. And now that we have streaming and we have so much opportunities to watch things from our home, people go less to film festivals. It's just the way it's just the way it goes, and there's nothing wrong with that. So film festivals, our film festival then has always had a real focus on Canadians of color in particular, who are trying to get in the industry. So even at our festival, we would have a film, but we'd always have a discussion like, how did you make your film? How did you get in the film? So these were always built in. Then we expanded to having more panels where people just talked about the industry itself and how they got in and how they could, get their careers and how to creatively tell authentic stories and, be your own voice and have power within your own agency. So that then slowly moved into screening less films, creating more panels until just before COVID. So I would say 2018, actually, we did do a summit. We actually call it a symposium. We did a 1 day. And it went so well that my mind was like, we need to do this going forward. And then COVID hit. And then
Oh, wow.
I've
Okay.
been waiting for COVID to finish so we could come back to it. So coming back to it was 2022. We planned for the 2023 summit by then. So that's really how it started. But it was something that we could have started back from 2019, but it was just like so many weird things were happening that it made sense to just wait and sort of see where the industry was going and what was happening and how audiences were responding to going back to in person.
So you said something about the Institute. Is that a new name and everything's under the umbrella of? Did you just rebrand?
Yeah, because when I started, it was Reelworld Film Festival. That's all we had. Then a year later, I started a program called Emerging 20, which is specifically it was for like screenwriters, directors, writers, an opportunity for them to meet industry professionals, really small in scope in what it did. Um, and then as funding increased, we expanded the E20, the Emerging 20 program. And then we made it just for screenwriters where they worked with story editors of color to get a finished script. And the program was now not just 2 days, but 6 months. So we expanded it. And then 4 years ago, 5 years ago, we launched the database for people to hire people of color. And 4 years ago, we started um, two different producer programs emerging, then more senior. As more things started happening, it felt strange to call it all Real World Film Festival, since
Okay.
these were things happening all year round, starting January right through to December. So that's when I decided to change the name to the Screen Institute. It also mentally helped the uh, people on the outside, from stakeholders to just an audience, to go, when they heard film festival, I think your mind just thinks those days.
Yeah.
Once they heard institute, it was easier for them to understand, oh, this program's starting in March, this one's starting in July, this one's starting so it was a key factor in that.
So can you share some initial challenges that you faced launching the Reelworld Summit and how did you overcome them?
Because I've been in the industry almost 50 years, I kind of have my list of changes I'd like to see in the industry.
Mm,
I can't activate all of them, but whenever funding comes up and I think, oh, this is a good fit. So 3 years ago, the government really pushed to create funding for more Black entrepreneurs. And they called it the Black Entrepreneur Program, is what they call it. We applied for that specifically because for training for casting directors, agents, managers, and we added film producers, but it was really the casting directors, agents, managers that I was focused on, because when I looked around to the current casting directors, the current agents, the current managers, I saw that there was so little diversity, almost none. It
mm,
was a very white industry. And we forget that those are barriers also to our success. If you cannot get an agent or a manager, if you need a manager, these are people helping your career move forward. And most white agents would take one or two people of color,
mm.
but their majority of their roster would still be white people. So this was an opportunity to have some Black agents who would probably predominantly have Black talent that they were handling, or casting directors, same thing. Many of the casting directors were white, like I want to say 99%. It was like crazy the amount. And that's also a barrier where casting, you have to really understand the community that you're casting for.
Yeah.
And so this to me was another barrier. So this has made a huge change. The program ends, the funding that we got ends this December 31st. It was for 3 years. And each year we've had approximately 14 participants cohort in each year. So I don't know how to add quickly, but it probably close to 40 people now in these sectors have been injected into the industry that weren't
Okay.
there before.
Yeah.
And that is huge. And we'll continue to work with them. Because as I said to the people giving the funding, it's hard to give anyone any money and say, in 12 months, you should have a successful business. It
Yeah.
doesn't work that way in
Yeah.
our industry.
Yeah.
But this is the start because it allowed us to get them incorporated, pay for consultants to help them with their business plans, the websites, the branding of their companies, the business cards that we're going to have, and for us to start introducing them to people within the industry that want to know them, want to get to know them. So we will continue to work with them because it takes years,
Okay.
for a business to launch. Even if you have all the boxes checked, it takes a long time because our business, like every business, is built on relationships. People rarely just hire people, out of the vacuum. They like to know who you are, and you know, do you have similar personalities? Do you click or don't click? It's like these are important factors also when you're hiring people.
That is so true. I mean, in any industry, you want a referral is
Pretty
better.
much in any industry, yeah.
Yeah.
Unless it's so far removed where you're like you're working this piece of machinery. It's like
Yeah.
when something's so far removed. But within the screen industry, often we have to work long hours. We work together, and if you cannot sit there with someone who's driving you crazy. It's just not
I've
worth
done
it.
that. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, we've all done that, and
No,
we're
I'm
like,
kidding.
not again. Like, not worth it.
That's funny. Um, so what advice would you give industry leaders then who want to make meaningful strides towards inclusivity? Like, would you have
Oh
any?
my God. So remember, this is advice from an old person. I'm 66 years old now. This is not going to be advice that young people give each other.
Okay.
And my advice is don't be lazy. What we do is really hard and it requires work. It's not the glam that you think it is. And part of your job is not going to be 9 to 5. Your job is going out, going to see films. When I say a networking event, that's not a party. A networking event is not a party. A networking event is you've already strategized what this event is. You've already done research as who you think might be there. You're using that opportunity to be in the room to meet those people, and you
No.
want to go over there and you don't want to bombard them. I say to people, when you network, it's almost like dating, in a way that you wouldn't go over to someone and say, hi, you're really beautiful, you're really handsome, let's date. Blah, blah, blah. You wouldn't do that. So nobody would go over and say, hi, I have a project, or I want to work for you. Like, it's
Yeah.
too much.
Yeah.
You would just start with, what people respond to when they think you know them. So a good way is to go over and say, hi, I just want to introduce myself. First of all, I want to say the last 3 pictures you did or that you produced were really fantastic. I really enjoyed them. People will remember you when you look like you've done your homework, like you know who they are, like you know the content that they make. I can't tell you how many young people, and this is what I call lazy, they go over to someone who does horror flicks. I mean, that is what they do. They specialize in horror flicks, and they go over and they start talking about a comedy sitcom they have for television. And
Oh,
I'm thinking, first of all, that person doesn't even do television, and two, they do not do comedy at all. So you've already put like a little, black mark against your name because you sound like someone not intelligent to the industry. So you need to do your research, reading. This is a vast industry, and if you're passionate about it, do your homework, read the trades, go online. Now remember, the reason I say people are lazy is I'm coming from a generation that didn't have computers. We didn't
mhm.
have cell phones, so
Yeah.
we had to do our research by buying a magazine or a newspaper or going to the library
Mhm.
and sitting down and writing out notes of people's names and researching those people. But I'm the better for it. I love something they do in Los Angeles. When you want to work in an agency, especially one of the big agencies here, it doesn't matter if you have a law degree. You need to start in the mailroom, and they'll keep you down there for a year to 2 years because you need to learn who all the players are before you can even consider sitting as an assistant on someone's desk. Because what use are you as an assistant to someone when you don't actually know anything about anything yet? By sitting in the mailroom, you start seeing the names. You start knowing that person's over at Paramount. Oh, they just moved over to Warner Brothers. Blah, blah, blah. This is where you become a useful human being to someone else. You actually know who the players are. I say all the time, think of our industry like a chess game. You need to know who the players are. You need to know where they're making their moves to. Why are they strategically moving that way? Has someone just been fired, let go? Why was that? Who's
Mm.
replacing them? Where's that other person going now?
Wow.
These are all pieces of information that will help you succeed as you move forward. But everybody, when I talk to young people, I love it. They're like, "Hey, Tonya, I have a project. Can you find me a producer?" I'm like, "Isn't that your job? Like, how is it my job to find you a producer?"
Okay,
you know,
can someone
"Hi,
actually
Tonya, I need financing. Where do I go to get that? How would I know where you should go to get financing?" Like, they just want someone to just hand them some answer, which is why I say that's my generation talking.
because
Yeah,
I
I
think
say I say that because I'm always shocked how people, "Hey, do you have this person's email? Don't you know how to find someone's email?" Like, without someone just telling you. Like, first of all the big companies almost have all the same structure of email. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like, if it's a certain company, you'll see it's, first name dot last name and then the whatever. Some other companies have first initial last name, where if you know
Yeah.
the person's name and you know they're working at one of these big companies, can't you work out what their email address is? I scroll LinkedIn all the time,
Yeah.
looking
Yeah.
for who I should be connected to, or even if I don't want to be connected to them, looking at what they've done, what kind of career. These are the only ways to learn things. No one's told me anything. No one just came up and said, "Here's a bunch of information." I would never trust it. So that's one. I'm not somebody that would just trust that somebody comes over with a bunch of information that's valuable. To
Mm.
me, information is valuable because I've dug for it. These are
Mm.
these are gems. I have sweated. I've taken my shovel. I have dug and dug and I find it. And so after I found it, the last thing I want is someone strolling over going, "Hey man, share that information with me." I
Yeah,
go, "Get your own shovel. Look for it yourself."
it's true. Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Because then it means something different to you. When you've worked that hard for something, it means, something. And also you figured out what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are. You figured it out for yourself so that you can navigate around those.
Wow. Those are good lessons for people to learn. You know what I mean? Like you do value it when you do the work.
Yeah, and
I
it's not just the screen industry, it's life. So I can be tough because I think old people do get tough. But I remember being 17 and 18 and 19 and my agent saying, "I've never seen an actor strategize the way you strategize because first of all, I didn't see people that looked like me on screen. So what's the point in asking anybody anything? The only people to ask were white people. And I had the common sense to know that whatever the path of that white person was not going to be my path.
yes.
So we already know that. So
Yep.
why am I asking a bunch of questions? So I had to figure things out. So once I learned there was something called, at the time there were the Geminis or the Genies, which are now like the Canadian Screen Awards.
Oh, I remember
I
Gemini.
would, and remember, there's no internet or whatever. So I'm getting the paper and I'm like, "Oh, these are called the Genie and Geminis." And I learn about what are these things called the Genie and Geminis.
Yeah.
And oh, it's an award show for the people in the industry. Wouldn't I want to know about that? Like, it's an industry I want to be in.
Yeah.
Wouldn't I want to know about that?
Yeah.
So I would now look for the winners. I couldn't even afford to go to these shows, but I could afford to buy the trades paper or paper that listed the winners. And then I would write little postcards to those winners, just saying congratulations. Really, really amazing. First of all, I watch a lot of content and I've always watched a lot of content. So pretty much anybody winning was content I saw. Like a show I started watching recently. What I love about it is the lead actress in it is actually biracial. So 100% we should be watching those shows that have people of color in it. But I watch a ton of content. And if you're a Canadian trying to get in the Canadian industry, you should be watching every single Canadian show. You should know who's producing those shows. You should know what companies are producing the shows, who's directing those shows, who's writing those shows. If you want to be a writer, don't you want to know who's writing those shows? You might meet those people. And those writers might invite you one day to come sit in on a writer's room, to come and whatever, get my coffee in the writer's room. You have to start there. You don't start by, "Hey, I'm a writer. I need a job. Somebody hire me." That it just doesn't work, that way. You want to direct shows? Are you watching those shows? What are the shows you want to direct? Make a list of them and then start learning the production companies. Ask anytime, can I be on set for free? Can I shadow someone? Can I just come and serve the coffee? whatever it is to get your foot in the door because you're going to build relationships. All of a sudden, you're serving coffee to people and you're just an amiable person. People just like being around you. They're going to go, remember that kid that was here last year, whatever? What's his name again? Yeah, Dave so and so. He was a cool kid. We have this intern thing. See if he's available for that because they liked being around you. This is just the stepping stones to how every single person succeeds. There is no, I started and then I'm winning an Oscar in 12 months. It's just, these are not realities. So you have to use your common sense as you build and strategize what your life's going to be. So I started going to the Toronto International Film Festival when I was 17.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know anyone else that even bought a pass and went to these festivals. I never saw, when I was sitting in those lineups, I never saw any other actors that wanted to do. Why wouldn't you want to be at a film festival where people hire actors? People who are there are people who hire actors. So why wouldn't you think in that way? When, what was this other thing that the Directors Guild of Canada, they had their award show. I'd make sure I was there. Why wouldn't you want to be in a room full of directors? So all the directors in Canada are at there. They're going to go, who's that girl over there? How else would they see you or know you exist? So these are, to me, just common sense business things that anybody would do with any business you have. You have a book coming out, I'm sure you didn't write it and put it on your coffee table and say, I hope people buy this. You have to strategize and figure out, how do I get this information out there? Yeah. And so that's exactly the same way with your career. But don't be one of those people that goes up to people and like, hi, I'm a director and I want you to see my reel and whatever. Don't be one of those, hi, I'm a writer, I have a screenplay, I want you to read it. Like, that's not the way you approach people. You have to approach them as a human being first. You have to know if you even like them. Would you really want someone to hire you, or would you want to work for someone that maybe you don't like them? And I mean, not that you just don't like them as you don't like them, but maybe you get a weird vibe off of them, especially if you're a woman. Yeah. Maybe you get kind of a creepy vibe. Are they saying some creepy shit to you? You want to write down, note to self, don't want to work for this person, Yeah. I learned from my parents to remember now. My father became a lawyer in the 40s, a Black man becoming a lawyer in the 40s. My mother became a registered nurse in the early 50s when women in the early 50s just got married and had kids. So I already learned from my parents this is how all success is. My grandmother on my father's side was a woman in Jamaica who sold oranges. You know what she did? She sold oranges till she saved up and got a truck. And then she had someone drive that truck and made money and got a second truck until she had a fleet of trucks. And every success is built on this premise. You have to start at rung one, and you're going to have to take thousands of steps to getting where you want to get to, but you have to be smart about it. You don't just get a second truck if you're wasting all your money that you could be spending from the first truck. You have to make sacrifices. My mother could never understand why anyone young trying to get ahead would smoke or drink or buy food at a restaurant, because to her, that's wasting money. Like, if you're really serious about buying a house or buying a condo or moving your career ahead, those are sacrifices you make. Make that tuna fish sandwich at home. Take it where you want to go. Make your cup of coffee, put it in a thermos, take it where you want to go. She doesn't see how could you spend $10 on a coffee and also think you can save money at the same time. So her generation is not even my generation, because I eat in restaurants all the time. She's a generation that would think the way I spend is just throwing money away. But
I like it. I think I like your mother's so I'm not saying I'm cheap, but I am very economical because I am saving, because I am financing this book, because I have to pay for it. I have not left my house since April? Like,
exactly. Entertainment is on your computer. Entertainment, food is what you make at home. This is what everybody has to do. That's not normal. So it is difficult for me to see people, spending money on all kinds of things, and then they tell me they have no money to take a course that is to help them in the career that they say they want to go in. But somehow they have money for things that are a complete waste.
Tanya was giving some great life lessons on how to succeed, but I also wanted to wrap up and ask her what are the benefits of the Real World Summit?
Great opportunity at the summit. You've got breakfast happening, you've got lunches happening that are all included with your summit pass. You're hearing great speakers, panels, you're getting asking questions, there are workshops. If you're serious about this industry, that's where you really want to be. And then even if you're not in the industry, it's so pleasurable. Go to the film festival, watch Canadian films. I mean, don't
Yep.
we want to build our own industry? Do you just want to watch international films? Do you just want to watch what's in America? Do you not want to watch what's in Canada? No, I'm really inspired. I look for people to, you know what I'd like young people to do? I'd like you to research companies that have been around for a long time that people of color run, knowing that those people are eventually going to get older and want to leave their companies. And it makes more sense from a business perspective that you would start in the ground, work your way up, and you could be someone that just takes over that company as opposed to starting a brand new company.
Mm-hmm.
That is the way business people should be thinking. Imagine if you met a producer who had a production company and he's had it for 30 years already. Doesn't that make more sense that you could be someone that took over that production company with all the history and what it's already done without you saying, hi, I just started a new production company and we're 6 months old. I mean, if it was the choice between that, when I started out, that wasn't that option. But now there are a lot of companies out there, and I see that those, the presidents and CEOs who started these, they're moving up into their 60s, almost 70, and many of them say, I don't know what to do. Like, do I just close the door? And I think how sad that there's not a mentality of young people of this makes more lucrative sense for me to grow something already established.
Oh, I know why.
It just started from scratch.
You know why? It's because it is. I'm not saying it's selfish. I'm not saying, but what it could be is the fact that people want to start their own. That's why they don't want to take over. I see what
Yeah.
you're saying. I
And
see.
I
Like,
keep seeing, but then on top of that, I see start your own, went under. Start your own, went under. It's not like most of the
oh my God.
companies they go under.
Yes, what you said
So
went
that's,
under. Oh my gosh.
if I saw a company that was, 20, 25, 30 years old,
Yeah.
that's tried and true. That's gone through some crap and come out the other end.
Mm.
So the handful of like maybe the 30 companies that are like that, it means thousands started and went under. So why not attach yourself to something that is a success already that you can build on? Because I can tell you, just in the last 20 years, I personally have known hundreds of companies that have started and ended, started and ended, started and ended. And people just get very discouraged. It's not easy to start a company. I know it seems like it's easy to a lot of people,
Yeah.
but managing people and building your company and finding the financing for it and dealing with all the administrative aspects of it, most people sort of have an unrealistic view of what starting a company feels and looks like, and they normally give up because they're not making any money. There's a lot of moving pieces to running a company that, if you're smart, I would go get a company that's already established. That's what I would do.
Okay, great.
And
Thank you.
why not? You still make it your own. And now, instead of saying your company's 1 year old, you can say this company's 31 years old because it's already been around 30 years and you've been handling it for the last year. It's still a 31-year-old company. If being in the spotlight is what's important to you, there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. You can build a marketing thing around it. Pictures. So and so is the new head of so and so company. You can go on talk shows and talk about how you have taken over this new company, whatever. You can still be out front and get all the glory that you think that you need or want. But it makes no sense to not think that way. It's really difficult. In fact, this day and age, very difficult to start from zero.
Yeah. Yeah.
And build something from absolutely nothing. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it takes a very unique kind of a mind to make those things work now.
Wow, I did not want to end this show. Tanya was giving some really good career advice for any industry. It could be entertainment, it could be anything you want to get into. So thank you so much for that, Tanya. Also, if you'd like to contact Tanya, if you'd like to get some more information about the Real World Screen Institute, you can go to the website, which is www.realworld.ca, or you can see them on Twitter at Real World Film and Instagram at Real World. I just want to say thank you to Tanya for being part of the show, and I had so much fun. Thank you. I do want to thank you. It's always a pleasure speaking with you. You're a wealth of knowledge. So thank you for imparting that with us. Thank you so much. I got
This
to.
has been great, and success on your book.
Thanks again for listening to the latest episode of Words with Michelle, the podcast. Just a reminder, you can subscribe to the podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You can also listen to the show on my blog at wordswithmichelle.com. If you have any questions, or if you'd like to provide a comment or feedback, or if you'd like to be a guest on the show, you can email me at michelle@wordswithmichelle.com. You can also email me if you're interested in sponsoring an episode. Thanks again for listening to the show, and until next time, bye.